Hi, welcome back. And as you can see, this is the site for some major surgery because that has come out. And as I mentioned, there were a couple of screws, 3 screws actually. This one here is accessed from the bottom, 2 of these over here. The problem with that guy is it was so tight I had to remove this whole contraption on the left there to get the screwdriver in. But at least that's done. And there were indeed 4 wires on here, only 4 wires. These 2 over here, and then there were 2, one there and one there, that I had to actually snip, and then I have to prep this for soldering back when I get this thing ready to go back in. And as you can see, this antenna socket and selector had to be removed as well, just to get the bloody thing out. Anyway, it's out, and I now have to dismantle it and see what we're looking at. Just by the way, one of the things I did do is I actually just removed this from the shaft, taped some tape around it so that the cords didn't all unwind, hopefully. The ferrite antennas hanging here precariously. I'll clean that later, but first things first. Let's get this capacitor sorted out. This is what we have when we have this thing disconnected. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 connections, as I mentioned. And it's a little bit oily because I've got quite a bit of WD-40 that I tried to shoot in there just to loosen everything up. Without success, I might add. Now, the next thing is to remove this thing, and there are 3 screws on there. I've removed them already, and what that lets you do is actually remove that little gear down there, and that little gear is what turns that bigger gear, which turns the fins. Now, when I remove this, watch what happens. It's moving freely, which means there's nothing wrong with the capacitor. It's the gear that's completely jammed. So let's have a look at that more closely. I've actually removed 2 of these E-clips. One of them goes here and the other one goes there. And this thing is completely solid. It's completely jammed up. Now, I expect there's some ball bearings in there, and I'm not sure how I'm going to loosen this. I guess I'm going to put it in some, probably WD-40 again, magic formula for everything. Leave it for some time and hopefully see if it loosens up a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to have to think of heat or something like that. It really messes up your hands, as you can see. So yeah, that's the next step. And if we can get this thing sorted out, we can get the whole thing working again. And here we are, quite a bit of time later. This has been completely cleaned up, as you can probably tell. But more importantly, this is now functioning again. This took quite a while to remove, and what it was just dried up grease. And now it's completely smooth again. So that means that I can put this back . No, I can't. Idiot, it's the wrong way around. Okay, take 2. I had it the wrong way around. Let's try again. That seems to be it. We'll just put on those screws and see if we've got a good result. Now you've got to move that till it's actually touching. You've got to get the gear right in there. As you can see, if I did that, nothing would happen. If I did that, it's there. So I've got to push it up. There's a little bit of give before I tighten it. Let's just check it. Brilliant. It's smooth. Goes all the way. I can give it the final tighten. And before I call this done, I'm going to do a quick test for shorts. Make sure we haven't shorted anything up in the capacitor. And testing for shorts is just that. I've got it on diode mode so I can get the beeper connected to the connect the multimeter to the two connections on the cap and just rotate it all the way through. And it shouldn't beep at all. And there we have it. No shorts on that one. Now remember, there are two caps on here. This is the second one. Got to test both. Yep, no shorts. Brilliant. This one's as good as new. Now all we need to do is the reverse installation of this onto the chassis. But before I do that, I'm going to clean up around the gaps that we've got there. Always a good opportunity to clean it up. And then we're ready to test to see if we've sorted out the problem. Okay, it's in, finally. This took quite a bit of work because getting it in place actually was more difficult than getting it out because of the soldering underneath. The wires are very short, necessarily so, because you don't want to affect the capacitance values. So the wiring is pretty short and you have very little space to get into it from the sides. Two of them get connected from the back, two from the front. And while you're doing this, this thing's floating in midair. So, yep, it's a little complicated, but I'm happy to say it's in. I've soldered that ground wire in place over here. Put back the antenna selector back here, and of course took the opportunity to do some more cleaning and so on. All that inside there was cleaned properly because there's always a spot that you can't reach. So when you've got something open, clean it. And then I'm getting ready to test this, and I expect the AM to have come back. I'm always an optimist. Let's give it a try. So I've got this thing on medium wave. I've got the volume on full. I've got an antenna connected down here to the mini whip. I've got a speaker connected. And I think everything's fine. Let's hit it. Okay, good news is we haven't created any new shorts. Let's give this a bit of time to warm up. I'll actually give it another lamp, so I'll restrict less. So I've got 214 volts going in. I'm still not too confident enough to just give it the whole lot. But the other thing is, while it's warming up, I did put the ferrite antenna back after cleaning it. And it actually, the idea of tying the strings up, taping it to the ends there, actually helped a lot. So, oh, we've got something. All right, we've got some noise. I'm trying to tune. Oh dear. Damn it. It's getting louder as I get to this end of the band, but it's not picking up anything. Let's try long wave. I can hear the hiss. Gets louder at one end. Short wave. Hiss again, no reception. I've tuned right across. So what could it be? Damn it, I wonder if I haven't shorted something on that capacitor. Not on the capacitor itself, but in the when I soldered it back. Geez, I hope not. I really don't feel like removing that thing. You know what? I'm going to just change the mixer oscillator tube. Maybe it's not oscillating. That one tube there, one of the output tubes was dead. So just maybe, that ECH81, which is over there, is dead too. So I'm going to give it a try. I should have an ECH81 lying around, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, I've replaced the ECH81. There is nothing obviously wrong with this tube, but that means nothing. Let me hit it again. I'll just wait. I'll put it on medium wave. There we go, medium wave. See if we got something. I sure hope so. It's a hell of a lot easier changing a tube than it is removing that capacitor again and looking for all sorts of stuff. We've got the hiss back. Let's try tuning it. Ha!
Também dá-lhes parabéns. Não poderiam deixar este dia, esta data passar em branco. E através das ondas artesianas do posto de emissão do Funchal, só dão...
Got it. Oh, that's a bit too loud. Okay. Ah, fantastic. Okay, let's try shortwave. Give it more volume. Please, please. Ah, we got something. I'm actually using the fine-tuning function, which is the FM tuner on shortwave. You can fine-tune it. You can just see the point at the front there and the FM moving around. I'll do a better demo of this later. I'm so happy that this is working. Ah, brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Okay. The ECH81 was blown, and it's probably the oscillator section. Now, what it could have been, it sounded like the front end was fine. It could have been the tuning capacitor that was shorted, which would have been a pain in the ass. It could have been the oscillator tube itself, which it seems to have been the section of the oscillator tube that, the section of the tube that does the oscillation, because obviously it's come back to life. It probably would not have been that the triode, because that is used also with the FM, and all it does there is amplify. So yeah, that tube was dead. Now that is great news. Strange to say that about a tube, but at least we don't have to go and dismantle half this thing again. The other thing it could have been, you know, this thing has got a switching function at the front, which switches off power to the oscillator section of this tube when you're using FM, and switches it on when you're using the AM bands. And that means that when you're on FM, you don't have power going to the oscillator, which keeps the whole set a lot quieter in terms of noise. When you're using AM, it switches on the oscillator, and removes the B plus from the ECH85, which is the FM tube. So it sort of swaps around. Now that could have been a switching problem. It could just be dirty switch contacts or something like that. I've had that happen before. But this was not the case. This was a lot simpler. It's just a tube that had overworked itself, and now it's working. So I'm really chuffed. I'm really, really chuffed. Brilliant. All right. I'm going to close off for now. Always end when things are going well. And then we're left with very little to do except the final cleaning of pots and knobs, which I put on there temporarily just to facilitate the tuning and volume control and everything else. I was not enjoying pressing buttons on bare metal for obvious reasons. It's called B plus on your fingers, not fun. And so I'll clean that up properly, and I've got to clean the faceplate, and again, clean, clean, clean. And then there's something else I want to do, and that is I'm going to prepare a connection for Bluetooth on this thing. And what I'm thinking of doing is I could use an external Bluetooth receiver. Those things are pretty simple. They plug into the phono input here, the back down here. And we should get stereo once we have that second tube, the ECL86 replaced, which at the moment I'm waiting for. I've placed an order. I'm not sure when it'll get here, but that's already been taken care of. But what I want to do then is when you connect phono, when you press phono at the front there, instead of phono, you'd have the Bluetooth receiver connected there, so you can use this to transmit from your either your phone or other Bluetooth device to the radio, using this as a receiver / amplifier / Bluetooth speaker, which is probably how this thing's going to be used most, if I'm not mistaken. The owner is a restorer. She spends days in her studio, and she wants to listen to music, and she wants to listen to music through this set, which is great. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. And what I want to do is probably, I have to create a 5-volt supply from this. I've done it before. The previous video, the Philips BX626, shows you the schematic for how I go about it. This one is actually a bit simpler. I'm going to use the plug system, the plug for the back. So I'm probably going to make this thing switch off until you actually press the phono selector. And the reason is the Bluetooth will be off if you're listening to radio, so it won't be producing any high frequency noise. That thing has some switching noise, and only when you're listening to phono it actually switches on and lets you pair with it, and then you can send your music to it. Now that should be quite easy if I can find on the TA switch, on the pickup switch, a spare switch which I could use to connect the power. I'm not sure that I can. I'll have to look at the actual schematic and look at the actual switching, see if there's a spare switch that I can use just as an on-off switch for the power supply to the Bluetooth receiver. But anyway, that's what I'll be doing next, and next time you see this, it'll probably look a little bit more complete, and I'll describe the function of the Bluetooth, how I decide to implement it, and also give you a demonstration on the full reception function. There is one thing I've almost forgotten. I will check the alignment on this, the IF alignment and RF alignment, and if necessary, I'm going to do the alignment, and I'll video that as well. I'm not sure if anybody's messed around with these guys. People do tend to mess around with screws and mess up the alignment. But I'll check that, and if necessary, if I do it, I'll report back on that as well. All right, thanks for watching. Bye for now, and if you like, please subscribe, share, and like, and all that stuff. Thank you. Bye-bye.